You guys got to get me updated with Britney because I haven't been following any of that. After I know her and her sister were arguing a little bit, and some other stuff
Yes.
happened. So
Okay.
what's the latest?
So the conservatorship is officially ended. So she can make all of her own legal decisions. She can enter into contracts. She can basically decide for herself what she wants to do with the rest of her life. The only issue is there were some financial questions about the conservatorship estate there was a hearing on Thursday or Wednesday earlier this week where they were dealing with some of those because Jamie Spears wanted to be paid a lot of money out of the estate for his attorney's fees and for his own fees for his work as a conservator, which he is entitled to reasonable fees under California law because he was acting as an agent of the conservatorship, regardless of whether you think that he was doing a terrible job and he was maybe using it to benefit himself more than the conservatorship, more than Britney Spears. He still is entitled to reasonable fees nonetheless. So they can definitely mark those down because of a lot of the things that he was doing, but still there's probably something that he would be possibly entitled to. So they had that hearing, and there was also at the same time going on Jamie Lynn Spears, probably because she kind of sees the writing on the wall and that the gravy train is getting cut off. She's got her book that's coming out or has come out, I guess, and she's been on this whole book tour where she's sitting down for interviews with Good Morning America and other individuals in different outlets to talk about her book and to talk about Britney Spears. And so this has resulted in, Britney using her voice that she's recently gotten back, taking to social media, talking about how she, she's basically responding to a lot of the comments that Jamie Lynn has been making about her. And she's pretty upset about it for some pretty obvious reasons. This is not a ghost. This is Indy. And so anyway. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
But that aspect of it, of them arguing over that seems like a monetary ploy, right? Like, oh, I wrote this book, Britney doesn't like it, so it makes you think, well, let me go read the book to see what Britney doesn't like,
Yeah.
So I think that just might be a marketing ploy.
Well, yeah. I mean, it definitely, controversy sells, right? But I don't think that Britney actually wants it because she's kind of sick of her family sort of using her as a gravy train, right? Which is totally understandable given that she's been the main breadwinner in the family, and it sounds like everyone else has been basically using this conservatorship to sort of live off of her wealth that she's worked so hard to earn. So she, her lawyer, Matthew Rosengart, who, I mean, it seems like that was like one of the best things that could have happened to her in recent years.
Getting her own lawyer. Yeah.
Getting her own lawyer, and specifically getting him because, he's a tough litigator and he knows entertainment law. And it seems like that really was something that she was really missing, was somebody to understand the entertainment industry and a lot of the things that are necessary to get things done for someone that's living in that world. Because it's a completely different beast from any of us, any of the viewers, it's a whole different world and so many different issues that most of us don't have to face. Obviously a lot of benefits, but a lot of problems that also come up as well. But so he sent a cease and desist letter basically saying there's a lot of things that are being said here that are potentially defamatory, and if you keep talking then there may arise a claim. Britney Britney's asking for you to stop talking about her. You say on social media that the book is not about her. She hasn't, she doesn't plan to read the book at any time soon, but this is what you're saying, is that she's not in the book. So stop talking about her when you're talking about the book.
Yeah, about the book.
So it was just, so that was that controversy. And then there was the hearing where apparently it was kind of an explosive hearing. I cannot wait until the transcript comes out for that hearing, because the two lawyers were really going at it, it sounds like.
Well, that's actually how I had first found out about it, was because I saw you said the tweet about wanting to see what the transcript was. And I was like, well, what is this? Yeah. And, oh, liar, he's a liar.
Stays on the case. Thanks so much for becoming a member. It's pretty nuts. So so the lies that they were sort of alleging was they had to do with what came up in response to the request for fees. So they were, because Jamie Spears and his attorney, they were saying that Jamie acted dutifully in the interest of Britney because he's her father, blah blah blah. Whether you believe that or not is another issue. But and they said that he hasn't engaged in any wrongdoing. So Rosengart, Britney's attorney, filed a response just like a day or two before the hearing saying, actually, there was a lot of wrongdoing, and here's a list of things, including
the surveillance of her,
surveillance, financial mismanagement, self-dealing, all kinds of issues. And under California law, so California is a two-party recording state. So if you're going to record someone in an otherwise private setting, you need to get that other person's permission. Not every state is like that. I think New York is a one-party.
Yeah, there's some
state,
one-party states. Well,
Wisconsin's a one-party state.
Okay,
I'm not sure about New York, even though I live in New York. I'm not even sure. But for one thing though, could she even give permission? All right, because wasn't she under conservatorship? So would she be able to even give consent to be recorded? Like who would do that in that case if you're recording her? Wouldn't it be her personal conservator? Wouldn't that person give the consent?
I suppose so. That's a good point. Yeah, because technically, it would either be. Yeah, it would probably be. So that's an interesting point too. I hadn't thought about that since now that she's out of the conservatorship. But yeah, during the time, because she was under a conservatorship, she wasn't able to legally make decisions for herself. So that means you can't consent to things legally, typically. So in that case, that would. So I think that's why Jamie's prior counsel, because the lawyer that was there for Jamie at this hearing is new. This is not the people that were there before. I mean, he's apparently hired dozens of lawyers over the course of 13 years, which is crazy. That's always a warning sign on its own, right? Like when you have a client that comes in the door and it's like, yeah, that they're like, I've had this case and I've had 5 other law firms on this case at various points. Like, whoa.
Well, and it's really hard for the attorneys taking over to actually know what's going on. We were like, when you've got thousands of electronic filing documents, or, if you're not in an e-filing state, having to go through all of those, it's like, it takes so much time to do anything, because if you weren't there to have the predicate information, you have to make sure you're not in violation of a million things that came before you.
Yeah. And especially one that has as much of a history as this one does. I mean, it's and no, I definitely agree. I've been on those kind of cases for a conservatorship specifically, and that was like just getting to a place where we could understand and see what was going on. And that case was like, unfortunately, we had to use a lot of billable hours just to get there. So that can be a potentially large waste of the conservatorship estate just right there, just by hopping over to new counsel.
But if you want to, I think that also cuts both ways, because if you want to kind of keep things nebulous so you can, dip your hands in and then nobody really knows what's going on, the more you change, then the next person still has to now wake up and go through that whole process. And by the time they get caught up, you're changing again. And then so you're always in this perpetual state of the attorneys trying to catch up to find out what's actually going on.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you're actually trying to obfuscate, then it's a fairly good ploy. But yeah, so this idea of surveillance, I mean, at the very least, I mean, even if it's not, even if technically it was legally allowed because of the fact that the person that would be consenting would be the person that was actually recording, it still strikes in such a terrible way, because apparently, or allegedly, according to the filings, that the surveillance was they found I guess recording instruments in her bedroom, I think, and then also there were recordings of her therapy sessions,
And
recordings of
conversations
her
with their attorney. Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
And that's a huge
Yes.
problem, regardless of whether or not you have consent to do that. That is
Because that's the whole point in hiring separate counsel for her.
Yeah.
You know, even though the conservator is supposed to be, you know, her agent, supposed to be representing her. The whole point in appointing counsel for the conservatee in any conservatorship case is just to make sure that everything's above board, that you don't have somebody that's taking advantage of the conservatee, and that, you know, you have somebody that can draw some pretty clear lines. So, I mean, if you then say like, oh, well, I can make decisions for her anyway, so therefore I'm gonna just, you know, find my way into these conversations and have no consequences for that. It defeats the whole purpose of having that separate counsel.
Yeah, it's weird because it's on one end, from what I understood, she had a personal conservator and then a financial conservator. If I'm not using the terms of art, forgive me. But if if the father was the financial conservator, I'm assuming he would still have to get permission from that personal conservator if he's going to do all this. So it seems there may be some connection there where, where even though it doesn't look good, but if he can get over that consent piece of it, because I always tell clients, you know, it looking good is not our problem. It being legal is our problem. I don't care how it looks. As long as we get out of here with paying no money and not going to jail, that's where we want to go to. So I'm thinking that may be where he's at, you know, where, hey, we did all this stuff, but I was totally legit because, you know, I got authorization from her personal conservator.